Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Apptrepreneur. Now usually on this channel we talk about fighting for your rights as a worker. Rights to get paid better, rights to keep your own schedule, rights to not get screwed over by places like Uber, Postmates, and DoorDash. And Lyft, of course, to be perfectly frank. And I will continue making those videos, but today I want to talk about a different kind of rights to fight for. Your right to keep the content, movies, games, music that you own. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. This is a Blu-ray. Now, it could be any physical item. It could be a CD, it could be a DVD, it could be a Super Nintendo game, whatever you want it to be. We're just using this as the example. And this is something, as you can see, I'm holding it. I can hold it, I can touch it, I can move it, I can smell it. I don't know why I would want to do that, but I could if I wanted to. And it's mine. I can watch this so long as I have a functioning Blu-ray player and as long as I don't sell it. Because I could also easily decide, you know what? I don't want this anymore. I have watched this. This sucks. It doesn't really. In fact, it's probably going to win a bunch of Emmys tonight. But if I don't like it, I can sell it to someone for 5, 10, 20, whatever I want. Bottom line is, I can do whatever I want with this. But look what it also says right here, digital HD. Now, it came with a digital copy of this series. Now, that digital copy, I can't do everything that I can do with this. I can't just loan it to a friend. I can't bring it to me wherever I want. If I'm on a device that doesn't have my digital account that has the, show on it, I can't watch it unless I sign into that account. And heck, even if I do, I might get a dreaded notification that I have exceeded the device activation limits that I can use for the show. And that's even if the service that I usually watch my digital content on is even activated with the device. Bottom line, it's not as, flexible as this is. But that's not even what we're talking about right now. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen my other channel. I have talked about, how physical media and physical anything is better than digital for all the reasons I listed before. But there's another reason. It's because with this, you have the right to keep this. What if I painted a picture where somebody came into your house, saw this, took it, also decided, we're also going to take your copy of Mary Poppins and your copy of the Best Picture of The Departed out of your house, and we're going to just leave you like a coupon so you can go to Walmart and buy something new. You might actually think that that is crazy. No one would actually do that because it's against the law. It's yours. They're essentially stealing. But the thing is, what about the digital copies? That could very well happen in theory. Now, I was reading the digital bits, and they shared the story of, I believe his name was Andreas G. Wells. And if I'm wrong about that, well, the links to the articles are going to be below. And he was away on a trip or something, and he noticed one day when he was looking through his iTunes store that a few movies that he had bought were no longer there. He remembered buying them, and they just weren't in his account anymore. So he called iTunes, or at least he emailed them. I don't know if you can actually call iTunes support for this sort of thing. I don't know. I don't really deal with Apple products. I know they have the Genius Bar, but anyway. And he brought it up. Apple responded and said, hey, you know what? There's a problem with the distribution. We no longer have the rights to distribute those movies, so therefore it can't be on your account anymore, and we have removed them. Andrews was clearly not very happy about this, and I even have a friend who will remain nameless, but he told me years ago that this is the sort of thing Apple would never do. I expressed concern that, hey, if people buy more stuff from the Apple Store or any digital store, what happens if they remove the rights to the show or something? Can you not get it? And he assured me it would never happen, and he's going to be kept secret for confidentiality reasons. But he was close enough to the company to make a claim that that would never happen. Well, as Andrews found out, this not only happened, apparently Apple does it quite frequently. Now, he voiced his displeasure, and Apple offered him, I think, like $10 or $15 to buy new movies. But Andrews didn't want to buy new movies. He wanted the movies he bought. And after a long exchange, he realized that wasn't going to happen. And the Digital Bits shared the story, and I believe the writer of the article was Bill Hunt, whose work is amazing on that site, by the way. Bill, I hope the site never goes away. And he wrote a huge article about you need to fight for your digital rights. You need to fight for your rights to keep what you buy. Like, if you're going to buy digital, it needs to be DRM free. It needs to be able that you can back it up on as many devices as you can, which frankly, a lot of companies don't do. Now, the funny thing is, like, this is not a digital copy I can back up. It just isn't. However, my backup is the physical copy. So if this were to disappear on my streaming services tomorrow, I probably wouldn't care too much. And yet, I, like many, have been screwed by digital ownership. And I want to kind of get the ball rolling to get the word out that this is a real potential problem with this new hashtag, which I encourage you all to make your own views of and share your stories. And I'm going to share mine right now. Now, unfortunately, I'm going to give you a heads up. My example happens to come from a very controversial subject. So I'm just going to give you a fair warning on that. But I am a huge, huge fan of Roseanne. And I'm not even saying that ironically. Roseanne is genuinely one of the funniest sitcoms ever, in my opinion. I know my dad doesn't like her, and I know a lot of other people don't like her for different reasons. But as a show itself, I think Roseanne is really funny, except for that very, very weird 9th season. And I was actually one of the most skeptical people about the 10th season revival. I wasn't sure if I wanted Roseanne to come back. I wasn't sure if bringing back something that was so 90s in the modern age was going to work. And when the season premiere came on, it was like the old magic was back. I was amazed. The casts were just as good as ever. It was just as funny as it used to be. And I did something I rarely do. I bought the first season, pre-ordered it on Vudu, which, for the record, Vudu is my, service of choice. Now, I did this for a couple reasons. First of all, I was watching the show with Katie, the old episodes with Katie. We were watching it for the first time. We're somewhere in the middle of season 5 right now. It's been a slow process, but we're also watching this, and this is apparently taking precedent over that. So I wanted to make sure I had a copy of the season ready to go for when it was time for us to get to those episodes. The other reason I was buying it digitally is because the show was produced by ABC. ABC has had very, very, very shaky releases when it comes to their TV shows. Sure, some shows like, Modern Family show up on DVD and Blu-ray easily. Designated Survivor shows up on DVD. You know, there are shows with Netflix that they made with Marvel, like Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Iron Fist. Those show up on DVD and Blu-ray in limited quantities, but they do. But other shows don't. The Muppets I had to buy digitally because they weren't releasing on DVD. And, I don't know. It's just, I like to watch some things without commercials. I don't know why, but Roseanne was just one of them. So I bought the 10th season on Vudu and downloaded the whole thing. Very, very typical. That should have been the end of the story. Now, this is where the story starts to get a little controversial, and I know some people might not agree with everything I talk about here, but you can probably figure out where this is going at least a little bit. Roseanne had a very bad day that happened to have been going on for about 15 or 20 years at that point. And when she was having a bad day, she would tweet really crazy things on Twitter. Very, very crazy things on Twitter. And one morning, she decided to tweet something that was very, very awful, and I'm not going to retread it here. Basically, if you want to Google or Bing Roseanne racist tweet, you can find out what she wrote. It's frankly not that important to the story. What is important to the story and why I'm bringing it up is the aftermath of that. The aftermath of what happened was that Roseanne's show was canceled. Roseanne was initially renewed for an 11th season, and then the renewal was undone. Since then, it has been renewed under the new name, The Connors, and she's just not going to be involved. Again, not really part of the story, just kind of showing what's going on. Well, here's the thing. When the tweet showed up and the show got canceled, I was actually a little behind in my watching, and I had not watched 2 of the episodes. But that's fine, because I bought it. I bought it digitally, and it was on my cloud. Or so I thought. For you see, that night when I decided, you know what? I didn't intend for this to be the way that I'm going to finish the show, but now that we're talking about it, I am curious, what's the end of the show going to look like? What does the real new ending of Roseanne actually entail? And the show wasn't there. I had paid for it. I even had an email receipt showing that I paid for it, and it wasn't there. So I looked around. Vudu was no longer selling the show. Hulu had pulled it. iTunes was no longer selling it either. They were selling some of the older episodes, but not the 10th season. Basically, in the span of one day, an entire season had been wiped out, and something that I had bought was no longer there. And now I have some very big issues with, companies erasing history like that. But you know what? Hey, for this video and how it pertains to owning digital stuff, what happened to my show? I paid for it. So I had to email Vudu. And I emailed some pretty strong worded emails, and they confirmed that they had decided to remove the show. Well, they actually didn't decide to remove the show. But the Walt Disney Company, who owns ABC, who thus owns Roseanne, the show, sent a notice out to remove the show's availability from the service. Which I emailed back. It's like, hey, that may be one thing, but I bought the show, and I don't see it. And I didn't even get a refund or anything. And the emails got heated enough that eventually someone agreed to give me a call on the phone at a specific time the next day. So I wait a day, and they call, and they ask what the situation is, as if they hadn't been reading these emails, and maybe this person hadn't. In all fairness, she was very nice for the most part. There was a part in there that I'm going to talk about that she wasn't quite as nice. And she asked what's the problem is, and I said, I bought this show, it's not on my account anymore, and I want it back. Which, in hindsight, it's interesting that I worded it, I want it back. So I kind of wonder how differently this whole conversation would have gone if I didn't word it that way. And she said, well, it looks like the company requested that we remove the show from the service. I asked her, do you no longer have the right to sell the show? And she's like, no, not really, but to keep partnerships strong, when they make a request like this, we kind of just go along with it. We can technically still sell the show if we want to. It's just the company has requested, and we have complied with that request. And I'm like, well, so if you still technically had the rights to sell the show, and I had bought the rights to watch the show, why don't I still have it? And at that point, things got a little bit more personal, because she's like, you're asking about Roseanne, the new season, right? And I'm like, yes. Isn't she racist? And I was like, I'm assuming she has some issues. Yes. I'm trying to word it very carefully at this point, because this is like a weird thing to bring up. And she was like, why do you want the show back if it's from a racist person? At that point, I was kind of floored. It's like, you know what? This is kind of where you're thinking to yourself. I know Mel Gibson has problems, but my DVD of Braveheart isn't asking me, why do you still own me? Why haven't you brought me to Dimple Records or Amoeba Music? For that matter, my copy of Titanic isn't saying, have you heard, you know what James Cameron has done? You know how he's treated his ex-wives, right? It's like, why do you still have it? Anything with Johnny Depp in it? My Blu-rays, they just sit there. If I want to pop in Alice in Wonderland, bad example, that's a terrible movie. If I want to pop in Ed Wood, it will let me watch it. And I don't think I should be judged for liking stuff with a despicable person in it even finding stuff out. I mean, of course, that's a whole different debate, but my Blu-rays and DVDs don't ask me this. They just don't. And yet, here's someone who's working for a company that I bought something from, and yet the company has the power somehow to question why I am upset that something I paid for is no longer there. And they're using some moralistic thing to hang over me, like, well, why would you watch something with a racist in it? It's like, I don't think that's any of your business. I think the issue, that's not even the issue. And I told her this. I said, you know what? That's not the issue. The issue is that I bought it and I didn't give anyone permission to take it away. I did not want to get rid of it. You know what? If I contacted you and said, hey, you know what? I don't like this show anymore because I don't want to support this person. I want my money back and I want you to take it off. That would be one thing. They took it off. They didn't even give me a credit. Now, once I used that example, she said, so do you want a credit? No! No, I don't want a credit. I don't want, I think you're missing a big picture here. Something was taken from me. I paid for it. It should be mine. At least in theory, it should be mine. What does the buy button mean if you don't own it? They have rent and buy on this site. If I am renting it, if I don't want to keep it for as long as possible until I choose not to have it, I will select the rent button. If I want to keep it for as long as I want, maybe even forever, I want to have the buy button. I said, I want the show back. I want it back in my account. I did not give you permission to take it away. And after all of this fighting, it took probably 35 minutes of arguing with this person and having to listen through her moralistic objections like, why would you want to keep something that a racist did? Why wouldn't you want your money back even though, yeah, maybe you should have given me my money back when you took it away in the first place? Maybe that should have been an option on the table. Well, you know what? After all that fighting, I got it back. And it's on my account, at least for a little while. But when I look at the site, I can't buy it anymore. For that matter, there was another situation several years ago where when Fox had the new Fantastic Four movie coming out, that really awful one. I mean, none of the Fantastic Four movies have been good, but this was also pretty bad. They removed the Fantastic Four movies off iTunes because those were no longer the Fantastic Four movies. We needed a new canon. This is what it is. And some people report at the time that their Fantastic Four copies, their digital copies, that they didn't have it off the cloud and downloaded, they lost it. Digital rights is a new era. We're kind of just getting our feet wet with it all, really, when you think about it. We buy something digital, it's on our device instantly, we don't even have to think twice about it, but before you know it, something happens and we find out that we don't have any rights. You want to know what's interesting about this? When VHSs were first introduced, pretend this is a VHS, places like the MPAA and all the studios fought to prevent that from being a thing. They didn't want, anyone to be able to record off TV. They thought that people would steal their stuff. Thankfully, because of prominent people, particularly Fred Rogers of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, testifying in Congress that he felt it was not stealing, we have the formats that we do. But Hollywood has always fought to take those rights away. They had that really crazy DivX idea where, pretend this is a DivX, because DivXs were, on disc too, where you would buy this and you would pay like $3 for it. Sounds pretty good, right? But here's the thing. When you bought it and you watched it, it would activate for 48 hours. If you wanted to watch it again, $2. $2 every time to watch this. People rebuked it in droves. And yet, we're kind of at a time where people are starting to accept it a little bit more. Except that, well, it's just $1. maybe I don't care. I'll just pay the dollar every single time I want to watch this. And even if they're not, they go to these sites and they buy digital, and they're not reading in the terms of service. And like what Uber does, remember, you know how Uber can just change the prices, or they can change the way the surge works, or they can take something out of the app, and all they have to do is rewrite the terms of service that you barely read. That's what people do with the digital copies. And if you don't want that to be the norm, if you want to keep what you spend your hard-earned money on, I know a lot of you people work hard on my channel. You work hard either driving for Uber or Postmates, or you have a real job and you just used to do this stuff and you like watching me, I guess. I know at least one of my viewers, or at least a few of them, works in a warehouse. You like your money. And if you're going to buy something with it, it's probably because you want it. The problem is, if you're buying digital, it can be taken away, and you have to fight for your rights to keep it. So, the point of this video is not only to share this, I kind of want to start a hashtag revolution on YouTube. Make a YouTube video and share your story if you got screwed by digital purchase. Hashtag it, hashtag I was screwed by digital purchasing. Or digital media. Actually, that's a better one. Hashtag I was screwed by digital media. Share your story on YouTube, on Twitter. You know what? Get the word out there. This is just step one. What happened to Andrews, it can happen to you. It can happen to anyone. What happened to me with the Roseanne show, and again, I know there's probably going to be like a lot of comments about, you know, the show and Roseanne as a person. Again, that's not the point. The point was I bought a show and it was taken away and there was nothing I could do about it. In fact, I'm going to be honest, I looked through my Voodoo movies after that incident and there were still a few extra things missing. I couldn't remember for the life of me, but it just dawned on me that some movies I had purchased at one point were no longer there. I just can't remember what they were now. It does happen. And that guy, there was a guy who remembered buying the Santa Claus on Amazon Prime, went to watch it for Christmas, and found out this very unpleasant truth. That because of contracts with Disney, Disney didn't want any of their Christmas stuff to be on Amazon during Christmas. They wanted it to be on the Disney Channel and ABC Family at the time, and Disney XD. When else are you going to watch Santa Claus other than Christmas? And he had bought a Santa Claus copy, and basically Amazon said, yeah, you bought it, but with strings attached. You can't watch it during Christmas. That's the kind of ownership problems that do need to be brought to the forefront, because these companies, they're out to protect their rights, not yours. They are not out for you, they're out for them, and they will do what they can to make as much money off you while giving you as little as possible. So, share your story. Hashtag I was screwed by digital ownership. As for everyone else, what do you think? Do you have a story to share? Don't just share it in the comments below, although I would love to read it. Make a video, share your video in the comments below with the hashtag, and let's start talking. How big of an issue is this? I would love to know. Also, like that video and subscribe if you are new here. Also, check out the Digital Bits. They write a lot about this stuff. They were the main inspiration for this video. And if you enjoy my videos, consider becoming a Patreon member. It's totally optional, but even as little as $1 a month goes a long way to helping the channel run smoothly. And as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.